looked at the newsletter and read it. I don't even remember what I titled this month. I think it was Learning Here, Learning There, Learning Everywhere. At one point in time, I thought I was going to title it, This Is My Life. But I think probably through this month, you will see a lot of my life. Mike Eddy was a big part of my life for several years. He may not want to admit that.
We better explain the nature of
it. If you ask anybody about Mike Eddy, one of the things you're going to hear is he is one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. I asked him to speak, and he said yes immediately. Then I asked him for a short bio. Now I'm going to read what he wrote. Take the last sentence in good meaning. When I read it, I laughed out loud, and then I thought, now how did he mean that? So anyway, Mike and I were colleagues in continuing ed. The last 11 years of my stint at Purdue, he was in continuing ed, and I was in continuing ed, and part of that time he was my direct supervisor, so you'll understand the meaning. Mike is director or a senior associate director for digital education. He will explain that at Purdue University. His primary responsibilities are for online courses, degree programs, and professional training. He has been at Purdue for 29 years in the same department, though it has undergone 5 name changes. I have at least 3 name badges to prove that. And I wasn't in that office 29 years. He has 3 degrees from Purdue, and 14 Purdue degrees have been awarded to his immediate family. Needless to say, they support Purdue. Now, here's the last sentence. He has purported to be the supervisor for Camilla Lawson for a period of time, comma, though little evidence of this supervision has ever been identified. Mike Eddy.
working? Is that working all right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, after I've said something mean about Camilla, I'll say something nice about Camilla. I thought it was, when Camilla asked me to do this presentation today, it occurred to me after the fact that really Camilla was probably the most appropriate person in the world to ask me to do this, because it was Camilla who really got us started going down the path of online learning at Purdue. And I kind of got drawn into it in her wake, more or less. Camilla was the first one, I think, to really figure out that online learning could be a real asset for our students. And so she went after it pretty aggressively, and it really grew under Camilla. And there are lots and lots, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of people who've gotten out of Purdue with degrees who've been helped by taking courses online, and Camilla got a lot of that started. And she did it for the right reason too. I mean, and I'm going to talk in a minute about some of the big online enterprises, but Camilla got into it basically to help students, and I think that's the right reason to do it, and that's kind of the path that at least I've tried to continue to follow as we go through this at Purdue. So all that is perhaps just a long way of saying that if you don't like the things that I'm talking about, you can blame Camilla. So online learning has really become a big deal in the last couple of decades. According to iPad's data, in 2012, 5.5 million students were taking at least one course online, and there were 2.6 million students enrolled in online degree programs. We've had whole institutions that have built themselves up around online learning. I'm sure you've probably heard of the University of Phoenix. There's a Kaplan University that's pretty much all online. There have been a couple of sort of obscure universities that have gotten into the online business and really increased their profile. Southern New Hampshire University, anybody heard of that? It's a huge, become a huge online university. Florida Central is another one that has kind of gone the same route. And some of the big campuses have also gone this route. Penn State, you may know that Penn State has something they call the World Campus, which is an online entity that's actually a campus of Penn State University. You've probably heard on WBAA the ads about, no, I guess they're not ads on WBAA, the public service announcements about Arizona State University and them advertising having 60 degrees online. You may have heard of the Western Governors University. That is also pretty much of an online entity. So Purdue has not really gone that route. Camilla's fault. We have kind of gone the route of trying to figure out what courses we can offer that would best serve our students. So that's mostly what I'm going to be focused on. I don't see that really changing an awful lot. In fact, my boss had a conversation with Mitch Daniels the other day, and I think he's not looking to transform us into an Arizona State or a Phoenix University, much to my relief. But this is not to say that we haven't been very active in the online. I want to talk a little bit about that today. We talk about where we've been and where we're trying to get to. All right, where did that work?
Yeah.
Oh, that's forward.
That one.
Yeah. Okay. This chart, it's a little complicated, but I just wanted to give. This gives you a sense of what the growth of online learning has been at Purdue, and it starts back in 99, 2000, and runs all the way up to the last year. I guess the important line is the kind of gray one, and you can see that we go from basically 0 enrollments in 1999 to well over 20,000 enrollments, annual enrollments in the current year, or last year, I guess. The turquoise line is courses that were offered to Purdue students through the Indiana College Network, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But basically, these were courses that we were kind of renting from other universities. And the brownish colored stuff then are the online courses that Purdue is originating itself. They're taught by Purdue professors and so forth. So you can see the trajectory there. We were trying to bring down the number of courses that we were sort of renting from the ICN institutions and bring up the number of courses that we were building ourselves. And that's been a pretty successful enterprise. Just to hit some of the milestones for online learning at Purdue, like I said, in the year 2000, Purdue students started taking courses through the Indiana College Network. And in this arrangement, a student could take an online course from pretty much any of the Indiana colleges or universities and get credit at Purdue. So that was a tremendous help to students. Students caught on to it pretty quickly with Camilla's help. And by 2009, we were having about 5,000 students a year taking courses through ICN. In a little bit different vein, in 2002, the College of Veterinary Medicine had their Associate of Science degree in veterinary technology. This is an online degree accredited by their professional association. This is the first and I would say only undergraduate degree that we're doing online, and I'm guessing that may not change very much for a while at least. In 2007, we started saying to the administration, you know, you're spending all this money to send our students out into these ICN courses, because Purdue actually had to pay the other institutions for our students to use those courses. And we said, you know, if you'll give us some of that money, not all of it, just some of it, we can build our own courses, and you know, then we'll have that asset here at Purdue. And so we were successful in getting that across, and that's come through the provost's office, and they've actually continued to be very generous with that support. So then kind of the crossing point came in 2010, when we actually had more of our students taking Purdue-originated online courses than were taking courses through ICN. So that was kind of a celebratory moment for us. In 2011, the College of Education launched a fully online master's degree, and by the next year, that master's degree was operating at a steady state of about 200. And believe me, that is a very large master's degree program. In 2014, for the first time, the majority of Purdue graduates had taken at least one online course during their stay at Purdue, and 30% of them had taken 2 or more. This last year was the first time that our enrollments in online courses actually exceeded 20,000. And you know that Purdue has this initiative to try to grow the summer session. When they were first talking about it, they said, oh, we're not going to count online courses. Those don't really count. And we were saying, you know, you're going to want to count these courses. And you can see how this has gone. So the blue, I know you can't read the numbers, but the blue are the online courses. The orange are the traditional classroom taught courses. And you can see actually that the classroom courses over the past 5 summers have actually gone down a little bit, and the trajectory of the online courses has been just going through the roof. And I would expect that next year the online courses will probably overtake the on-campus ones. But President Daniels and a lot of other people are very committed to trying to get more students to stay on campus during the summer. I think that's going to be a hard pull, but they are dedicated to that idea. So we'll see what they can come up with. I'm happy for the competition, actually. So what is an online course? What does a good online course actually look like? Many of you probably remember the old correspondence courses, and these are considerably different than that. So when you work with us to develop an online course, we have people who are professional instructional designers. These people all have at least master's degrees out of colleges of education, and they are specialists in designing courses. And so typically when a faculty member works with us to develop an online course, they're working with an instructional designer, and it's a really rigorous process, and it's a very thoughtful process. So I guess my feeling is, just generally, you end up with a well thought out course that maybe you don't necessarily always get if you haven't gone through that kind of process. And these courses tend to have very clear learning objectives, and the assessments, the tests, the assignments, and so forth are all very focused on the accomplishment of those learning objectives. So they're very efficient in that manner. Of course, they use a lot of video, but we don't really let people record their 50-minute lecture. Those tend to be pretty boring in person, and equally so online. And the research has shown that the attention span of most people watching video does not go beyond 7 minutes. So we encourage breaking up of any didactic material into chunks that are 7 minutes or shorter, which is kind of a revelation to some of our professors. We also emphasize the idea of students need to interact with each other. That's part of the learning experience. They learn from each other. So in an online course, we do that through virtual work groups, discussion boards. You know, if you have a group project and you have a nationally based online course, you may be working with somebody from California and somebody from Florida, and you're sitting here in Indiana. We have to have interaction with the faculty, and that occurs in a lot of venues. They can do it through email, Skype, discussion groups. There's a lot of communication that goes back and forth, and we've had a lot of students tell us that they actually have more interaction with their instructor in an online course than they do in their large lecture classes, for example. Online courses tend to be asynchronous, by which I mean there is no set class time. So the students do their work when they can. So as you can imagine, that's great for people who are working professionals and who are trying to pick up some credit courses. It's also great for our athletes, for example, people who have very pressing schedules. And we've had entire varsity teams and the junior varsities too taking courses. Camilla would have the whole basketball team down at her office at some time or another. And so that's a very popular feature. These courses are what I would call resource rich. Typically what we try to do is get all the stuff that you're going to need to do this course inside the course. So you don't have to go to different places. It's all contained within the online course. And we try to create a course with a very strong instructor presence, because that's part of the learning experience. You want to feel like you're being taught by an instructor. So for example, at the beginning of a course, the instructor will come on and do a 2-minute video saying, "Hi there, I'm Professor so-and-so, and this is what we're going to be doing in the course." Some of them will do sort of a weekly update. So this is week 3, this is what we're going to be doing this week, and so on. And of course, online courses allow you to use a lot of advanced technologies, simulations, learning games, all kinds of stuff that's kind of gee whiz sort of stuff. So what do students like about these courses? Well, I think one thing that you have to keep in mind is that most of our students today are what you call digital natives. They have grown up with computers, and I mean their expectation is that everything will be done on a computer. If you say to them, "Well, I've got this form that you have to fill out, but you have to come to my office," they're going to say, "Well, are you crazy? You know, why isn't this online?" So this all comes natural to them. So they have the expectation of things being online. It's not a novelty. But they also very much like the flexibility and the scheduling, being able to work when they can. And I mentioned before, the athletes take particular advantage of that. So what we try to do is select courses that students are having trouble getting into, that are high demand courses that for whatever reason the departments aren't able to offer enough space in, and so forth. So we're focused on trying to provide online versions of those courses and creating additional access for the students so that basically they can get through and graduate in a timely fashion, and students appreciate that. And again, a lot of them tell us I have better access to my online instructor than I do to the guy that's lecturing me in the class of 50 lecture hall. Summer is just a total natural for online learning, because the student can be living at home, presumably his parents aren't charging him rent, and they aren't paying for him to stay in an apartment in West Lafayette. The student can have a job and still make progress towards their degree during the summertime. And in another context, students who are on co-op semesters, students who are doing study abroad, they're taking online courses while they're doing these things. We had some students who had been ill. I remember some kind of sad cases where people were very ill and were able to continue taking courses. I remember, yeah. And we also had students who were serving in the military. I remember during the Iraq War, we had students who were patrolling the streets of Baghdad by day and coming home at night and doing their Purdue online course. That felt really good to us. I don't know how it felt to them, but that was kind of a proud moment for us. Another thing, a phenomenon that's kind of happening is with online courses, no matter where you live, you can have access to courses from pretty much anywhere in the world. So, in my day, the idea that I was sitting here in West Lafayette and I could take a course from Stanford, well, there was no way that was going to happen. I'm not going to drive out to Palo Alto and live there for 6 months in order to take a credit course. But with the online courses, you can do that. And students are starting, this isn't a big thing yet, but they're starting to sort of take the approach of building an educational portfolio. So maybe I got my degree from Purdue, but I got this certificate here from Stanford, and I got this other thing from MIT. So, you can start to build a pretty nice looking resume, even without a lot of job experience, if you kind of have this extensive, far-reaching educational portfolio. So what about the faculty? And this can be kind of a love-hate relationship with faculty. They're not all entirely sold on this, but so I'll try to hit some of the highlights here. Faculty, the type's getting pretty small. Can you still see that? The faculty like the idea that they can teach from anywhere, and I have had faculty who were on vacation in like Miami or something, but they were still able to teach their course, and I imagine they were having a drink with an umbrella in it. So the faculty have, in an online course, you have a kind of a different instructional role. So, typically, what you do as an instructor is kind of what I'm doing now. You stand up and you give a lecture for a certain amount of time, and that's sort of what you do as your as an instructor. And then you pack up your briefcase and you go home. But in an online course, you've already done that. The lecture part is already recorded, and it's out there. So your job as an instructor now is not to deliver that lecture again for the umpteenth time with your old yellow lecture notes. Your job is to work with the students. And, I've had instructors say, well, gee, the lecturing is the fun part. That's what's cool about teaching. This student stuff I don't know about. So it's the kind of cliche version of this is that it's the sage on the stage, that is the person delivering the lecture, versus the guide on the side. And some faculty really warm up to that, and some don't. We've also heard from faculty members that it actually is more time-consuming to teach online. And you want to guess why? Email. Students are emailing you at all hours, and this digital native thing, they don't think they have to wait around for 2 or 3 days for you to answer. They really kind of expect an answer pretty quick. So it is, and again, working on as the stock guide on the side, you're dealing with a lot of student issues kind of one-on-one. So it can be more time consuming. Another thing that the professors like is the idea of working in kind of consortium arrangements. And we've had classes where, online classes, where it's being taught in 2 different places. Where did we do that? Illinois. Well, yeah, It's kind of silly, but so half the class is in Champaign-Urbana, and half the class is here, and you can do that because you're online. It's kind of cool, and the professors really enjoy doing that kind of thing. When you're offering an online course or you're in an online degree program where the students are coming from anywhere and everywhere, that's pretty cool too. And they like the fact that you have this wide mix of students from a tremendous variety of places and with different cultural backgrounds, and so they can enrich the class. And it's just exciting. It's just a neat area to be in. And in fact, that's why I'm not retired today. I've been doing this now. When did you drag me into this? 15 years ago. But it's exciting. It's something that's sort of opening up at Purdue, and it's great. The other thing that faculty members consistently tell us is, teaching this online course, I'm bringing a lot of what I've been doing in my online course into my face-to-face course, my regular course. And so we feel pretty good about that. So we think it's kind of generally helping to kind of raise the bar on teaching. Because it does kind of cause you to do a lot of self-reflection about what you're teaching and how you're teaching it, and what works and what doesn't. So that's kind of where we've been and where we are. And I want to just spend a minute on where we're going next. I will tell you ahead of time, I don't know, but these are some of the possibilities. How many of you have heard of MOOCs? Okay. A MOOC is a massive online open course. These are non-credit courses, and they're being offered by some of the finest universities in the country. Harvard, MIT, Stanford are very big into these things. So the very first MOOC that was ever done was one on artificial intelligence by a guy named Sebastian Thrun at Stanford. And he opened this course up, and he got 155,000 students in it enrolled. So professors are saying, geez, I do this MOOC, and I teach more students in this one class than I taught in my whole career. So, it's kind of a nice ego trip. The problem with MOOCs is that there's no business model. Well, the business model is we're going to do this for free. We're going to spend a lot of money to put this MOOC on. It costs about $50,000 to put a MOOC on, and your revenue is zero. So that's a pretty challenging business model. So Purdue, we're doing an experiment right now with the platform called edX, which is the Harvard MIT MOOC platform, and we're doing like we were doing 10 of these. And we'll see how it comes out. I mean, I really have a hard time figuring out what the rationale is, other than just sort of goodwill and publicity and so forth. But you should go out online and Google edX or Google Coursera or Google Udacity and look at the stuff that's out there. I mean, I took a modern poetry course. I'm in English, and I took this course. There were 35,000 people with me. But it felt very intimate because the way the instructor did it was he had small group discussions with like 6 graduate students around a table. So there may have been 34,000 other people watching, but it felt like I was one of the 6 guys at the table, and I would be sitting there. Don't say that, that's stupid. But it was fun, and they're free, so you really ought to look into it. There's some great stuff out there. And I'll let somebody else pay for it. Let MIT pay for it. Online degrees, I mentioned we have a few that are doing very, very well indeed. We have a strategic communication one that I think is going to hit 400 students here pretty quickly. And we have a lot that don't have those kind of numbers, but that's a direction that we can go in. Online master's degrees, it turns out, are the sweet spot in this. To do an undergraduate degree, boy, that's just an awful lot of courses, and students have to have a lot of different choices and so forth. But typically, a master's degree is 30 hours, that's 10 courses. You don't need a whole lot of other courses. That's a pretty doable thing, and a lot of people want a master's degree to advance themselves in their professions. So that's kind of where that's headed. I think I'm pretty sure we will be doing more of that in the future. Competency-based programs are a little bit different thing. This is when you take the courses in your degree program and you break them down in terms of specific skills that people need to be able to demonstrate. And basically the structure is that these are just open courses. Students come in and do them on their own time, and as they can demonstrate that they've achieved these competencies, then they get the credit for the course. So it's a way of approaching it with no calendar, and students working. Students also had there's a possibility that we could do extracurricular credentials. For example, we haven't done this yet, but Purdue's got an entrepreneurship program, and if that could be offered online, then students could do that during the summer and earn that certificate as they proceed through. I think there's a possibility that you could do remedial courses online. So before a student comes to Purdue, if they need some more math background, you would be able to do that kind of thing. So as I said, I don't know exactly where we're going, but I know we're going. And next week there's going to be an announcement of a major initiative, a campus-wide initiative, to try to set some priorities and some strategies for what we want to do in the digital education space, and very specifically how we're going to get there. So in fact, we're not calling it a strategic plan, we're calling it an action plan. And President Daniels likes it that way, so that's the way we're going to do it. So watch for that. That'll be coming out pretty quickly. So that's what I've got. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. This just gives you a snapshot of what he's doing, but I think it's great for the students. I think it's great for faculty. It's just wonderful. He did bring back a lot of memories about our students, just for you to show how close it is to you. One of the students he was talking about who was gravely ill and taking Purdue courses, or courses equivalent to Purdue courses, was a student in residence, so to speak, at Riley Children's Hospital. And when we did our tour there, we saw their education center, and he would take his courses there, and of course we would get the results. So it was a great way for him to stay connected to the university and think about something besides his illness. So that was fun. And then when our students were in the military and in Iraq, they would send back photos and equipment. And this may be a little bit sexist in a way, but all the girls really liked seeing the pictures come in, because we had some great students at Purdue who were in the military. This is online. That means there needs to be power. And if you have never experienced giving an exam when the electricity goes out, Janet, it's a wonderful experience. So Mike, we have for you this little digital flashlight to help you guide the students out when the power goes out, and then you get to explain to the people why they need to reset the exam. Thank you so much. And Mike has time. He said he has a 2 o'clock appointment, but if you have some questions and you want to ask him, he'll be around for a little bit. Thank you so much, Mike.